What is up, and welcome back. Week 12, Setting the Edge, NFL DFS lineup review. It is Monday night. Another successful week for your boy over here at Vaughn R16. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Fanduel at Han, Hannn. And you can find me on Draftkings as Jangis. Funny name, I know. What I'm here to do for you, let's just like last week, break down what I ran with last week, this week rather, on this Sunday main slate on FanDuel and DraftKings, which my main lineup was. I am primarily a cash game player, as many of you know. I make one cash game lineup and I roll with that. I play it in GPPs, I play it in cash, and I'll create a couple of GPPs as well. But I'm primarily a cash game player, and what I want to do for you guys is break down why I rolled with these guys, why they made sense, how they fared out, as a self-evaluation. So you can check, basically checks and balances to improve yourself and improve your game. It's important to review your lineups to see what did and what did not go wrong in the DFS world, since things can change on a day-to-day basis. So let's get things started here. Let me screen share this all for you guys right now. Let's go over to screen one here. All right, so my main cash lineup ended up at 120 flat points, hit everywhere across the FanDuel industry. All the cash games I played, top 10 and a majority of them, top 5 and some. But let's start from the top here. I rolled out with Derek Carr in the 4 o'clock games against a Panthers defense that really struggles against the pass. And for a while, for the first quarter of the game, it really looked like Derek Carr was going to break it out for us and have maybe like a 30-pointer or a 25-pointer. But he ended up dislocating that pinky finger, I want to say, a little bit after halftime, which was very worrisome for a lot of DFSers. He was only 10% owned in cash games, especially in this $5 entry, which is very weird to me. I thought he might have been the sharpest play, but a lot of people played Breeze. Very sharp play. He ended up having like the biggest day. A lot of people like Russell Wilson. That didn't necessarily turn out. Derek Carr ending up with 18.3 points. Very solid. I'll take that from my quarterback any day of the week. What really ended up hurting us here was the fumble he lost when he dislocated that finger, that interception that almost got brought back for a pick. And the minus 13 rushing yards, there's nothing you can do about that. When I tell you a quarterback's going to throw for 315 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's something you want to get a part of. And that 2-point conversion later in the game was huge. And if you guys were watching this Oakland Carolina game, you knew that Derek Carr had a chance in the end zone to get another touchdown. I believe it was to Crabtree over the middle, and Crabtree kind of stumbled coming out of his route over the middle, and he didn't get to the ball in time. So that could have been an extra, 4.2 points, whatever it may have been, which would have been very nice. Maybe it would have bumped me up a little bit in GPPs, but I was already solidified in cash games at that point. So I thought Derek Carr was a very sharp play. I also played him in the 100K NFL Spike single entry series presented by Roto Grinders, where he was 13.3% owned there. This lineup also ended up cashing in that $5 entry, which was very nice. I ended up doubling up there. I thought his ownership was going to be a little higher, like I had mentioned, but I'll take Derek Carr any day when he gives you 18.3 points. He's one of my favorite plays as a quarterback this year. To some, he might be an MVP candidate. To me, no, he's just been a great player. Behind that offensive line, it's just been absolutely great. And, the Panthers being a funnel defense where they want you to throw on them rather than run, because the run game is the run defense is very vicious. So I thought Derek Carr was a sharp play. Let's move over to Thomas Rawls. 21% owned here. If anyone knew that the Seahawks were going to score 5 points in this game, I probably wouldn't have played Thomas Rawls at all. After seeing Tampa Bay go up 2 scores within their first 2 possessions in the first quarter, I was like, yikes, this is terrible for his game flow. You knew Thomas Rawls was going to be a tad bit game flow dependent. If the Seahawks got down, they weren't going to just pound the ball with him. That's not that's not how he works as a running back here. But with the Seahawks pretty much having no other active running backs, I thought Thomas Rawls was a sharp play. Not necessarily sharp even, just was going to be the chalky play. I thought he had a decent enough matchup against Tampa Bay, but, I was wrong. On the road in Tampa Bay, Bucs defensive line, pretty good. But when they went up, 14-0 early and the Seahawks were in panic mode, and that offense just looked terrible. It ended up not working out for us, but it didn't break my lineup. We ended up 38 rushing yards. Seahawks couldn't move the ball at all. Not the greatest play. I considered going to Rashad Jennings on the Giants and saving a 400 value. I don't know what I would have done with that 400 value, maybe bump up a defense or kicker. But, I was on Rawls from the start. I thought his ownership might have been a little higher, only at 21%. But that just shows that a lot of people were on Ajayi that I was not on necessarily. I didn't like that pick on the Dolphins. I'll get into him a little bit later. But Rawls at 7K, maybe a little too pricey for, the talent he is and the situation on the road. I fell for the trap, but you know what? The trap didn't hurt me all in all. He was also 17.5% owned in the 100K NFL Spike single entry series presented by Roto Grinders. So it didn't hurt. It didn't kill my lineup. Didn't help it at all by any means. But when the cash line is so low, and sometimes 120 doesn't cash for you, so I'll take it and walk away with it. Next pick, David Johnson. I thought this was the most obvious play on the board. Stick in David Johnson into your lineup, print money. Atlanta is one of the worst teams in the NFL against a pass-catching running back. I thought there was a very sharp play. Carson Palmer has not looked great for Arizona, so they're relying on David Johnson to be their offense. 8 catches, 103 receiving yards, 58 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. Thought he might have got a little bit more rushing yards going into the game, but with 26.1 points, 66% owned, I'm going to walk to the bank with that. Great game from him. He was also 39.7% owned in that GPP I mentioned before. So he was the chalkiest play of them all. But you know what? I don't really care about chalk when it comes to cash game lineups. I just want to get the most raw points possible in my lineup. And, I guess you can say when you get 29 points total from your running backs, you'll take it and walk away from it. And then Derek Carr with 18.3. We'll take that. So that's the start of my lineup right there. Let's move on down to my pass catchers here. The first guy I locked into my lineup right off the back here was Odell Beckham Jr. I thought he was a very, very sharp play. I went him last week, kind of, didn't get it done for me, but against the Browns here, I figured he's going to break out, a 30-plus yarder touchdown, and that's exactly what he did. He broke out a 30-yarder earlier in the game when a lot of people thought he might have been hurt his elbow or something, came back in, 6 catches, 96 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had that red zone look as well. OBJ also almost ran us back a punt, but if it wasn't for that holding call, we could have a real big game, 30-pointer, 30 spot right there from OBJ. At 6% owned, you think the number 1 wide receiver playing against Cleveland, the best option on this team in general would be a lot higher owned, but that just wasn't the case. So, I'll take that all day. 24.6% owned, 24.6 points. Great game from OBJ. I deep down had a tiny fear that Eli was just going to have a bad game, and the Browns maybe pulled that off. Bring us back to that Saints situation where the Giants went into the Coors Light of the NFL and really just threw up a stinker and didn't get anything done. But that wasn't the case here. OBJ, another raw points play, just loved it. 6% owned. I'll take that all day. The next pick I had plugged in, 2 guys, same price point. Julian Edelman and Michael Thomas. I thought these guys had great matchups, both of them. Julian Edelman going against the Jets and the cornerback tandem of Marcus Williams, Buster Screen, and Darrelle Revis. Thought that was something I wanted to pick on, even though according to my PFF matchup sheet, he didn't have a great advantage. But you know what, Edelman, it's a volume play. He got 8 catches, 83 yards. I believe he had double-digit targets, if I'm not mistaken. And with Gronk being questionable going into the game, I don't even know why they even played him. As a Pats fan, it kind of bothered me. But I was really hoping Edelman was going to get into the end zone there. But the Pats kind of, pissed away the game early. They weren't really – the heads were kind of up their asses. But Edelman saw a solid volume play every week in, week out. And at 6.4, I'll take that all day. I don't understand the price point on that. We saw 17 targets last week, and I want volume. I'm a volume guy in cash games, and what better guy than Edelman to get you volume? He was 35% owned, so a very popular pick, and he was 14% owned in the GPP, the 100K NFL Spike I had mentioned before. 12.3 points. I'll take it all day. I'll take it. It's solid. Didn't hurt. Definitely helped my lineup a little bit. The next play was all about me some Michael Thomas. I feel like about 75 to 80% of the cash lineups I've played this year has involved a Saints pass catcher, and the majority of the time it was Michael Thomas. The Saints lit up the scoreboard in the first half, and it was absolutely awesome to watch. 9 catches, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns for my boy, Michael Thomas, the tank engine. One of the best rookie receivers in the league, 27.3 points, 15% owned. I thought that was a little low. He's got an 80.6 receiving grade on PFF. He had a .62 advantage over the cornerback EJ Gaines. And I really wasn't afraid of LaMarcus Joyner or Tremaine Johnson on LA, really guarding him. And with Brandon Cooks putting up a 0 spot in this game, Michael Thomas ate up all the usage, all the targets, 108 yards. Just a great game from Michael Thomas there. He's one of my favorite plays week in, week out. 6.4, that was too cheap. 15% owned there. And in the GPP, I mentioned before, he was about 10.5. One of the sharper plays that I was all about, and I was surprised to see not his ownership down there. Let's move on to another disappointing play for a lot of the DFS industry. With Josh McCown back, we all know that Gary Barnidge is his favorite over-the-middle receiver. And Gary Barnidge got banged up in that game, and he wasn't used at all. He was kind of taken out for a bit. 1 catch, 11 yards, and we saw that. And a lot of the DFS industry was tilted. That was my plug-and-play guy right from the start, saving a little bit of value. I wasn't going to go Will Tye. I should have went Vance McDonald. I've been on him last couple weeks. He's been approaching at me. He's been on my radar a lot. Kaepernick's been throwing him. That's the play I should have went to, but I thought this was a great spot for Barnidge. I figured Cleveland would be down. They'd be throwing the ball a lot with Josh McCown. And you know what? The Giants secondary is legit, guys. Gary Barnidge and the rest of the Browns tight ends didn't have that great of a game. You know what? When you get 27 points and 24 points from 2 of your wide receivers and another 26 spot from your running back, you'll take it. You'll take it, pick up your bags, and move on. Gary Barnidge was also 9.2% in that Roto Grinders single entry series. Let's move on to the kicker defense. Usually I'm able to nail these kickers, and I figure the 1 week I don't go Ryan, the 1 week I don't play Ryan Suckup, the Titans kicker, he has a lot better game than the guy I went. Dan Carpenter missed an extra point. The Bills weren't kicking field goals. They went for 2 later in the game. It was a mess. That was an absolute mess. Honestly, just didn't turn out the way I wanted to. We've seen Dan Carpenter kick 40-plus, 50-plus yard field goals week in, week out. I thought it was a sharper play. Kickers are tough to project anyway. I thought, I wanted to roll with that game. I figured Buffalo might have gone up a little more on Jacksonville, and they would have just, settled the kick field goals a little more. Something I didn't nail. Justin Tucker was the big guy to pay up for there. He ended up with like 19 points, which outscored majority of the fantasy players this week. So if you had him in your lineup, it was a GPP and cash game winner right there. The Titans defense. That was the chalk play of the week. Picking against Matt Barkley and the hopeless Chicago Bears with no Alshon Jeffrey on the road. That's what it was. They got the 2 picks, but the Bears were able to score points to, keep themselves within the game. Titans didn't get to the quarterback at all. Not maybe my greatest play. The play I would have pivoted to in retrospect would have been the Ravens here. The Ravens were a home team against Andy Dalton without his top 2 weapons. Gio Bernard out and AJ Green out. That was the better play overall. But you know what? This cash lineup here on Fanduel ended up hitting across all my cash games. 120 points. Not really going to complain about anything there. I want to move over to my buddy's lineup. Win with Zen. You can find him on Twitter at the Great Zambino. Not the greatest week for your boy, but there's a lot of merit between why he went his plays. He was on the brink of a bunch of them, and I'm sure he won some head-to-heads too. Not some plays really didn't fizzle out for him. That plays I thought were very sharp. We'll start with the quarterback, Drew Brees. Drew Brees, he knew he'd be a little bit under-owned for his consistent, incredible production in a favorable matchup at the Coors Light field of DFS, the Superdome. It's 1% owned there, 32.5 points. Brees lit it up. I'm sure a lot of people were tilted when I believe Willie Snead threw a touchdown pass later in the game, and that would have been Brees' 6th touchdown pass if he had tossed that in there. And he also ran one in, which was awesome. So 32.5 points from your quarterback. That's a great way to start your day. Just we'll move down the line and you'll show why a lot of the things didn't turn out. You went Thomas Rawls along with me as well. That play, as I mentioned, didn't work out. If we had went Rashad Jennings, it's a little more bump in points, but I also play him and I both discussed a lot, and we really liked. But retrospect on the road against a defense I didn't figure would allow 5 points. It just kind of sucks. He was on Jay Ajayi from the Dolphins here, 12.1 points. He kind of scavenged that out with the touchdown. I believe he only had about 15 carries for 40 yards or something along the lines of that. Not too great of a game. Miami was missing offensive linemen, and we saw last time the San Fran defense played against an offense where they were missing offensive linemen. We saw them kind of shut down David Johnson a few weeks back, and everyone in the industry was on display, and I was leading the train. Me and my buddy, probably my last login, were all over the anti-Ajayi train, and 41% owned, only getting you 12.1 points, and you're paying 8.4K for that. Not panning out the way you wanted it to. But Ryan thought it figured his ownership would drop off a little bit. It did not, unfortunately, and he did get into the end zone, which paid off for him. And he was telling me that he was between him and DJ. And in my thought, I'm gonna play DJ all day, and that with the amount of volume he gets in the pass game. And he figured also if he paid down to Ajayi instead of DJ, he can get Breeze in his lineups. Merit is there, but didn't work out all in all. Moved down to his wide receiver pass catchers here, Tyler Boyd. He was all aboard the Tyler Boyd train. We saw what he did last week when AJ Green came out of the game. We saw a lot of volume going his way. 8.7 points from Tyler Boyd there. It was a value play similar to what the Tyreek Hill has done in previous weeks with a comparable floor, in our opinion. So he was comfortable rolling him out, see if he can get into the end zone. And if he did, he would have been all set, and I would have been put him really close to that cash line. But unfortunately, Cincinnati wasn't able to punch that in, even though there were opportunities. In my opinion, I didn't like the play. A depleted Cincinnati team. Andy Dalton, not necessarily familiar with Boyd yet. AFC North rivalry game. Wasn't the spot for me, but 8.7 points from a 5.6 guy is going to break your lineup, but it's not necessarily going to make it either. The next two plays I thought were really sharp too. Doug Baldwin and Amari Cooper, and I was tossing the idea of playing both of them honestly. Cooper, as I mentioned with Derek Carr, Carolina's defense hasn't been stellar this season, and the points had to come from somewhere. They just didn't go to Amari Cooper. Unfortunately, he was didn't pan out for everyone. 47% owned. A lot of people got screwed over by playing Amari Cooper here, and even more people got screwed over by Doug Baldwin. That's 71% owned in this. In Baldwin, in the slot against a guy recently taken off the bench in a similar situation to where he started to thrive last year. That's just something that really sucks to have. Amari Cooper is graded 83.6 on Pro Football Focus, and he had a .36 advantage over Daryl Worley, Carolina cornerback. And I don't believe any of us here were worried about James Bradbury or Leonard Johnson either guarding Cooper. And that's just, unfortunate situation there with Carr hurting his finger. That definitely hurt Cooper a bit. And he went to Crabtree a lot towards the end of the game. So unfortunate for Cooper there. And Baldwin, I thought he had a pretty decent matchup against Alteron Werner, Brent Grimes, and Vernon Hargreaves the third. But you know what? When the Seahawks put up 5 points on the road, Baldwin's probably not gonna have a great game. He got 6.9 points. That doesn't hurt if it doesn't hurt if you have like a lot of other stellar plays. Say for example, if Cooper and Boyd were to have gotten into the end zone, that that 6.9 there is manageable. But the play didn't work out. And another bad beat over there with Greg Olsen. I thought Greg Olsen was going to be potentially the highest scoring tight end this week. I just didn't want to pay up. I don't really like paying up for tight ends necessarily in cash games unless your name is Ralph Gronkowski or Jordan Reed. And Greg Olsen didn't work out for our boy here. 6.5 points, 8K. I believe that Ryan thought he was potentially going to be the sharpest pick of them all. He was favorite tight end against an Oakland in the game with two seemingly overrated defenses. Thought he'd eat more up targets, and later in the game, Olsen ended up dropping like a 30-yard pass. It really could have assisted him out a little bit. But in my opinion, I don't like paying up for tight ends. But 6.5, this goes to show why. Just if you don't get that touchdown, you don't get that volume. You're paying up for there's a lot better plays at 7K if you look at the wide receivers, for example. What would you rather play? 6.4K pay up for a wide receiver Edelman or like Michael Thomas, or spend that value at tight end. I'd prefer to go to wide receiver, but we live and we learn, and that's why we do this here. Move on to the bottom of his lineup, the kicker defense here. He went with Aguayo, and I don't blame him there. We've seen Aguayo light up the kicker scoreboard to say the last few weeks he's been money, and then you know what? Tampa Bay's offense didn't do anything after they scored those first 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. It was just a really disgusting game to watch, and him like myself, we play the lowest value kickers in a game that we think could involve a good amount of field goals and points, and ended up with 2 points there. It just sucks. That just sucks. And he was on the Saints defense, which I thought was a pretty good play. And they were very low price there, 4.3, saved a little value than what I spent up at 4.5. A cheaper defense against a rookie in his second start at home. I thought that was a sharp play there. 7 points, a little better than what the Titans did for me, but didn't make or break his lineup necessarily. Not a terrible week for Winwood Zen, Ryan Zamichelli at the Great Zambino. Definitely won some head-to-heads because a lot of people were, got boned by Baldwin, Boyd, Cooper, Ajayi, but at least it wasn't a complete bust. Let's move over to the Setting the Edge NFL Challenge V4. Your boy over here took down that lineup. I ran my cash game, took it down back-to-back weeks here. Ryan ran a different lineup. He ended up with 104. If he had rolled out with that lineup across the industry, he probably would have cashed the majority of things. And then our boy Razzle Grimes really got dicked over by the Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin stack, and our fourth man who got invited didn't make the cut there. But you know what? I'll take that and move on. Let's move on over to my DraftKings lineup. Very similar lineup construction. I wanted Derek Carr. I wanted David Johnson. I went with Rawls. Those were guys, obviously I want them in Fanduel. I wanted them on DraftKings, and Derek Carr was a lot cheaper on DraftKings, which made no sense to me, so I rolled with him. David Johnson, if you don't play him in DraftKings, you're really asking for it, because with the PPR you get and the bonuses, 33.1 points, which is just awesome. I ended up rolling with Tyler Boyd. He got 11.2 points. Didn't make or break my lineup necessarily, but I thought maybe a little exposure on DraftKings would have been cool. I also rolled with Edelman and Michael Thomas. 2 of the plays I just wanted from the start, and Michael Thomas really paid off. Getting that bonus is huge, and the PPR is great. And tight end in this one, I went CJ Fedorowicz. I guess I could have went him over on FanDuel too if I had the extra value, but I had some leftover cash laying around. I decided to pay up for Fedorowicz. I think it was about 200 more than. I think Barnage might have been actually more expensive than CJ Fedorowicz was, so I rolled with the cheaper of the latter there. 8.2, I'll take it, but. Like I had mentioned, Vance McDonald was the play I should have rolled with. I actually played Rashad Jennings in my flex spot here. I had the cap left over to toss him on in there, 7.9 points. So he was better than Thomas Rawls. He got the 2 catches, which was great, even though we didn't get anywhere with it. This lineup cashed across the industry, 141.6. I thought it was a very solid lineup. Hit GPPs as well. I think it was like top 5, top 10 in pretty much every cash game I played. And I also rolled with the Titans defense. Once again, very chalky picks in this lineup, but my chalk hit where it needed to be. My quarterback, my running back, my defense. The other guys, my wide receivers, were sharp plays, and they weren't that highly owned, and they paid off for me a bit. So that'll be all here from me today on Setting the Edge. If you guys need any lineup advice. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at VaughnR16. I'm always talking, tweeting, doing anything on FanDuel here. So make sure you guys check me out. I'm also you can find me on my website, settingtheedge.weebly.com. Make sure you follow my partner in crime at the Great Zambino, and that's THA. You can also follow my other partner in crime, Eric Rasmussen, GK Playbook contributor, DFS report contributor. Part of the Setting the Edge team. You can find him at Razzle11Grinds, recovering NFL and a little bit of EPL soccer as well. We're bringing on a guy who's a top 100 player on Roto Grinders to our site, so stay tuned for a lot of content there. From all of us here on Setting the Edge, we hope you enjoy this week. NFL coming up on Monday night and starting in about 10 minutes. We got the Thursday night game once again. Lots of NBA coming up, so hopefully you guys are stuffing your wallets after, just like you did with your turkey stuffing this week. Best wishes to all you guys, and salut.